is Shelly Howell on the other side. Both players in the 1-0 bracket. Let's see, runaway red on Rudy's side.
Some builds of this deck, this is still a very new deck. Play things like Lava Spike as their ways to cast spells. Rudy's actually playing some main deck Burst Lightnings, and those will pay dividends in a creature matchup like this.
So let's get things started. Rudy on the play will have a turn 2 Runaway Steamkin. That's going to be kind of our signature card in Runaway Red. What I've heard about this, if this survives to the next turn, all sorts of fireworks are going to happen.
I don't care what the format is, you should kill this creature on sight.
Yeah. Not going to happen. On Shelly's side, though, she does have an attacking curve of her own. It's Mausoleum Wanderer into Supreme Phantom. So an attack here for 3 sends Rudy to 17. But let's see what's happening on Rudy's side. Manamorphose. I love it in a monocolored deck.
Get that red mana counter.
Yeah. Draws a card.
All I'm saying is this turn better be busted.
I think his hand is just lands. Fiery Temper takes care of Supreme Phantom. Steamkin attacks as a 3/3. Yeah, Rudy's hand is 3 mountains and a Ramanap Ruins.
Huh.
He needs a Faithless Looting. Pretty bad.
He desperately needs a Faithless Looting. Just one could do a lot of work, though. Really easy to flashback Faithless Looting when you control a Runaway Steamkin, but he has to turn these into some more spells.
Fiery Temper there cast at retail price. 3 mana for a Lightning Bolt. Still fine.
This is the kind of hand. He's leaning heavily on finding something off the Manamorphose. His deck's already something that getting to untap with the Runaway Steamkin is such a big deal that you're kind of hoping that this unknown variable will be a factor in your game. And on top of that, the hand that Rudy's kept really relied on that Manamorphose finding something good. It won't be difficult for Shelley to overpower just Runaway Steamkin.
And for Shelley, main phase Rattle Chains swings in for 2. It looks like she's missing that 3rd land drop. Rudy draws Lightning Bolt. Can attack in for 3. Shelley says no blocks, and he will bolt the Rattle Chains and pump the Steamkin. So creature down, and then she takes 4, drops to 13.
So now on the battlefield, the Steamkin's at 4/4. Rudy's technically ahead. A solitary Path to Exile would dramatically change the texture of this game.
I was going to say, if she can produce a land. She does. It's Mutavault, though. So we have, looks like Moorland Haunt, Mutavault, Seachrome Coast. It's a bit awkward.
That's tough on the Azorius Spirits deck. They have a lot of gold spells. You can't cast gold spells with 1 colored land.
Yeah, and just says go. If one of them was a Ghost Quarter, when you first look at those colorless lands, that's what I was looking for, to see if you could kind of do that 1-turn trick, but I don't think it happened.
No.
Attacking it for 4 again sends Shelley down to 10. She does have a Rattle Chains. As Rudy plays Ramanap Ruins, might just be passing the turn here.
I like this Ruins a lot. He's playing exactly 1 land that's not a mountain.
Yeah.
So this is just 2 points upstairs.
Rattle Chains end step for Shelley. She will untap, but she's at 9. Need to be careful here.
Yeah, if your clock is not fast enough, Rudy can just draw 3 Lightning Bolts in succession, and then that would end the game.
Wander attacks. Rattle Chains, however, does not.
Yeah, the setup here makes it so that Shelley can activate Mutavault and go for a double block on the Steamkin, the way that the board's shaking up. And she's already in a position where just Lightning Bolts going upstairs are a problem, so risking that in-combat blowout, I think, is pretty reasonable.
Monastery Swift Spear for Rudy and a swing with both. He actually declined to use Ramanap Ruins on that end step.
Maybe he wants to pretend like he has more deserts to go with it.
She says no blocks. If she says no blocks, I mean, this is... The life steel's just getting too low. Fiery Temper upstairs. We'll send her to 6. Prowess.
Yeah, this is a
make
lethal
this
attack.
lethal. Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been better because Rudy has that temper. If Shelley goes for the double block, then the temper just kind of busts that open.
Yeah. So despite a land-heavy hand, all sorts of red decks put enough pressure on. The fact that Shelley could not find a second colored mana source means that Rudy takes game 1.
Yeah, I'm not going to give a strong endorsement for the Runaway deck based on that game.
Right.
But I certainly wouldn't give one to the Spirit side either. Some mana woes there for Shelley Howell.
Yeah, if it like a single Fatal Push would have been pretty difficult Rudy really banked on that Runaway Steamkin surviving, but it did.
Yes, and Azorius Spirit's relatively light on removal, but it does play Path to Exile. That could have broken that open.
So let's look at some parts of the sideboard. On Shelley Howell's side, 3 copies of Stony Silence, 3 copies of Rest in Peace, 3 copies of Damping Sphere. If that doesn't say something about the metagame that your sideboard is starting out that way, I don't know what does. A lot of things for different unfair matchups.
Right.
But she does have some big ones in those remaining cards for this matchup.
Yeah, 2 core Firewalker. That's excellent. Gains a bunch of life. Blocks Runaway Steamkin until the end of time. A Worship. Pretty hard to lose to red decks when you have core Firewalker Worship, kind of a combination. And a Solitary Leyline of Sanctity, which I do enjoy the one of Leyline.
Now, against Burn, Leyline of Sanctity is great. How about Runaway Red?
Rudy's deck, he's configured in a way where his burn spells mainly can target creatures, Fiery Temper, Burst Lightning, Lightning Bolt, and Howell's playing a creature deck. So there is something to that. That said, there's a couple risk factors, and some of these burn spells do kind of want to go upstairs. It can buy you some time. There's also not a huge cost to having 1 Leyline in your deck. Kind of a situation where you're playing 4 Leylines, it can actually be a pretty significant downside in a matchup like this to draw 2 of them. But there's not a huge cost just having the 1. I'm pretty fine with bringing it in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, the matchups where you'd want more than 1 are the kind where the card is just worth, a Leyline's worth 2 or 3 cards. It's lights out. I think Leyline's good here, but it's not worth more than a single card. So 1 is, even if she had more, I think 1 would be the correct number.
Yeah, I like this configuration a good amount.
Now on Rudy's side, he's a red deck, so he's got some limited options, but we have Blood Moons, Chandra Torch of Defiance, Tormod's Crypt, Abrade, Molten Rain, and Anger of the Gods.
So it makes a lot of sense for Rudy to go heavier on these removal spells. The 2 Abrades are great. Also, Azorius Spirits tends to be an Ether Vial deck, so Rudy probably has the read on that. 2 Anger of the Gods are quite powerful. Kind of a fun thing about that is once you get your Steamkin up to a 4, you get it out of Anger Rage on your own side, so that card's pretty powerful in the matchup. Wouldn't mind to see the Chandra Torch of Defiance, just because it's a Planeswalker that acts as a removal spell. It can kind of take over games on its own. I guess a deck that plays such a good flash game, it can be a little bit awkward. So mostly I am looking at the Abrades and the Angers, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a Chandra cast in the course of the sideboard games.
Game number 2, Shelley Howell is going to be on the play. Now, I do want to note something. You mentioned those risk factors with Leyline. Risk factor kind of a harkening back to Browbeat. Browbeat, a card that gets around Leyline of Sanctity. Risk factor, I think, as you mentioned, it does not actually. Risk factor reading target opponent, whereas Browbeat says any opponent. So yeah, the Leyline does play here.
Those any opponent cards are weird. I play some Commander sometimes, and I strongly dislike the way any opponent works there.
So Rudy Briksza, already a winner on the tour this year. That first weekend after Dominaria, he piloted to Ferry all the way through the finals. 29-yard from Baltimore, Maryland, now has 3 open wins. Picked up that 3rd one we were talking about. And if you haven't, he also has a weekly podcast with Tannen Grace and Brad Carpenter.
I miss Brad Carpenter. We don't see him too much on the tour anymore. Former Players' Championship competitor, as is Rudy, of course.
One thing I always like with these events, Rudy, especially this year, has been very bullish on cards from the new set. You know, he's been very good in week 1 opens and standard, and you kind of see Runaway Red. We're incorporating Guilds of Ravnica cards straight away into our modern deck. Rudy was on a mulligan to 6. We start off here, game number 2. Shelley's Wanderer gets hit by Burst Lightning, and now she'll try for Selfless Spirit.
And there's a good amount of value in your opponent not having a great idea how your deck works, and that's the kind of metagame position that Rudy likes to have. A little surprise factor. Find yourself with a deck that people aren't necessarily going to be prepared for.
Another Burst Lightning from Rudy. His hand's a much different style this time. Looks like he has, his remaining cards are a 3rd land, a Lightning Bolt, and I believe 2 Bedlam Revelers, which is actually going to be great against this kind of start. Shelley making Aether Vial.
Yeah, being full up on Bedlam Revelers makes it really easy to just fire off these pinpoint removal spells, even if it's not the most attractive target.
And I like this, a Faithless Looting from Rudy. If he does have 2 Revelers, this would give him an opportunity to get rid of 1.
Right.
I'm going to get rid of Tormenting Voice and a land.
All right, so now there's 4 instants of sorceries in the graveyard, so a land drop already puts him in Reveler territory next turn.
You're absolutely right. It does. He's got a lightning bolt as well here. Now, Moorland Haunt has been drawn here by Shelly Howell. She makes Mutavault. So 2 creatures in the graveyard. Looks like she does have the ability to put some additional threats down. And Rudy will go Desperate Ritual.
Storms out 1.
Okay.
Ooh, looks like he has an Arclight Phoenix to discard to his Bedlam Reveler. And if you haven't seen this one, this is really interesting templating. The way that Arclight Phoenix works is it checks at the beginning of your combat if you cast 3 or more spells. So it doesn't have to see the spell being cast and be in your graveyard. He only cast 2 so far, but even still, drawing any spell here will bring that Arclight Phoenix back.
Right, so he goes through his hand, he's cast 2 spells here, out of mana for Bedlam Reveler. Does he have anything for 1? If he had a Burst Lightning, it would get that Arclight back.
Land Manamorphose would do it.
Yeah, it does not. So he passes, and Shelley will Path to Exile away the Bedlam Reveler. But this is actually a very different game, whereas last game was about racing. This one is about attrition, and suddenly Bedlam Reveler looks great.
Right. The first copy didn't amount to much. It would have been quite good if Rudy was able to cast something and get that Phoenix back.
I like this. Mutavault will attack in for 2. Shelley leaves up mana for that Moorland Haunt. And Briksza, here we go again. Manamorphose. Spell number 1. Looks like Abrade picked up. So Abrade the Aether Vial. Spell number 2. Shelley never really getting a chance to use the vial. And Faithless Looting. That's going to be spell number 3. So the Arclights are going to come back this turn. We'll see if he can find another one.
And here you're seeing where it doesn't matter if the Phoenix was in the graveyard or not.
Yeah.
He found a second one. So we'll get them both back here.
And this is where the red deck just impresses. You see it can play that early game kind of like Burn, but suddenly it's going late here with Bedlam Revelers and Arclight Phoenix.
Yes.
Shelley will path away a Phoenix, but again, this means she can't use Moorland Haunt, and still takes 3, dropping to 14.
Having the path there is effective. It's a permanent solution to the Phoenix, whereas the Moorland Haunt is, over the course of 2 turns, offering a temporary solution. So Rudy's deck is fairly good at gassing back up using Faithless Lootings and Bedlam Revelers to get enough spells to trigger these Phoenixes.
Core Firewalker from Shelley. That was one of the sideboarded cards we were pretty excited about here.
It would have been great on turn 2 of this game.
Yeah.
She would have already gained a very healthy amount of life.
Yeah, his graveyard has 9 red cards already in it, so I have to say I agree.
At this stage, it's not bad, though it kind of hinges from here with Rudy going off with Phoenixes already. She might need the Worship to pair with it.
Mutavault hit by a Lightning Bolt. And Rudy will go back with Faithless Looting.
I think he found a Fiery Temper. That's a combination with Faithless Looting.
I like how these red decks are playing mini combos right now. It gives them so much more reach than you'd expect out of an 18 mountain deck.
Right.
Things like this, Faithless Looting, discarding Fiery Temper. And we'll see where that's going in a swing in with Arclight Phoenix. Now, looks like, yeah, Shelley, so when you do that, Faithless Looting into Temper, she does gain 2 life and then takes 3. So it's not really card advantage here in the fact that he cast a Lava Spike that gained his opponent 2 life. So
yeah.
A Hornet Sting, if you will.
It's not a card you would play.
Yeah.
It is additional value, but not really worth a full card. Ooh.
All right, how about this? Phantasmal Image copying Core Firewalker. How many of these can you beat, red deck?
And this is nice. So the Phantasmal Image typically has that downside of if you target it, yeah, you have to sacrifice it, but Protection from Red means you can't target it.
Runaway Steamkin. Shelley will go back up to 9. Manamorphose back up to 11.
Casting Manamorphose in your kind of honest red deck against 2 Firewalkers is not really ideal.
Flashback Faithless Looting up to 13. So Rudy's got a plan here. Looks like he does not mind casting these cards into Core Firewalkers. He's going to plan to overpower them.
Yeah, kind of the idea is he really wants to find his remaining copies of Arclight Phoenix. Those are creatures that can actually just connect in the air and close the game.
Selfless Spirit from Shelley. Will she attack with the Firewalkers? They can.
An attack with 1 makes sense to me.
And makes sense to her as well. Sends Rudy down to 14.
Yeah, you hang 1 back to block the Steamkin. You can't block the Phoenix anyway, and you do want to apply pressure. I like that attack a lot.
If Rudy offers, do you think Shelley will try to trade this Selfless Spirit with the Arclight Phoenix?
Well, it looks like Rudy's not going to offer.
Not going to offer. Rattle Chains, he's going to try to abrade. Rattle Chains will give the Selfless Spirit hexproof. We'll see if the life gain, it looks like, yep, does go to 15. Now, Steamkin's a 4/4 here, but man, 2 core Firewalkers are good against a red deck.
Right. Especially just this configuration. So as I alluded to, it makes sense what Rudy's doing turning through his deck. He wants to find those additional Phoenixes, have some damage that can come through in the air. But he's casting so many spells that don't have any impact on the battlefield that just gain Shelley life every time.
Up to 17, another Steamkin for Rudy. Shelley's up to 19. I mean, he is getting a really powerful board here. Tormenting Voice, Shelley's going to go to 21.
I mean, if there's no Firewalkers, what he's doing right now looks very powerful.
Yeah.
But it is sure dampened by the effect of core Firewalker.
Well, I guess if he gets enough large creatures here, I mean, he did just make a 2/2 Steamkin and a 3/4 Bedlam Reveler and put counters on another Steamkin this turn. It's been a pretty nice go of things.
Yes. He is still in a position, though, where just the 2 blocking Firewalkers are slowing this. He's getting to a point where he's starting to get to good attacks.
Yeah, and looking through the graveyard, I'm looking for a Faithless Looting. I don't see one.
Yeah, we've seen him flash back them plenty of times.
So a swing here. Looks like Shelley will offer Rattle Chains as a trade with Arclight Phoenix, and then she gets a free block on the Steamkin with that core Firewalker. Remember, Moorland Haunt is still working here, so she's not going to really run out. And Firewalker attacks for 2. Rudy goes down to 12.
I was interested to see how the Firewalker attack would look this turn. There's a reasonable argument for holding them back, but given that Rudy's just kind of spinning his tires and casting spells let you gain life, having the additional blocker is not worth all that much.
Full swing from Briksza. I think I would have liked to see Selfless Spirit join in on the attack. Unless she's planning to block with it this turn, there's kind of one of those strategy things I'll say, if you're not going to block, then attack.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the Spirit attack as well.
She will take 5, go to 16. Rudy passes, and we do not see the Moorland Haunt, so it'll just be a draw.
Yeah, I think she's holding it back in case Rudy produces a Phoenix, but it's kind of an issue where the stuff on the table is already worth that much damage.
Yeah. Down to 14, Shelley goes from Ramanap Ruins. That was on end step. We go back to Briksza. Makes mana with Steamkin, and here we go again. Faithless Looting. Shelley's back up to 16. And Spell Queller. Love it. And I like how you gain the life and then get to counter the spell. Not too bad here.
Yes.
And she gets the counters from the Steamkin. Oh, just everything about this was nice. And here's Path to Exile, and Rudy's picking up the cards.
Yeah, what you really saw there is that Rudy's playing a deck that's very similar to Burn, but one difference is life totals were low enough that if that core Firewalker showed up that late against actual Burn, it's not necessarily going to beat just Boros Charms. What it is going to beat is 10 Faithless Lootings and 2 Mana Morphose and a Desperate Ritual.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So 2 core Firewalkers against it's like pretty good against any kind of mono red deck. For a second there, it felt like Rudy would. I'm trying to think if he can overpower 2 core Firewalkers, and it's close.
It would be a pretty different game if he found more Phoenixes, though. On those lines, I'm not trying to paint the picture that he got unlucky. He found 2 Phoenixes in the first half of his deck, which is about what you would expect. His most busted draws can power through that, but he just didn't have access to that.
Phoenix, I think what you're right, though, is that Phoenix is the answer to core Firewalkers here, isn't it?
Yes. The Spirits deck, though, does present a lot of flying creatures.
Yeah.
If Shelley finds herself in a position with a bunch of Spirit Lords, suddenly the Phoenix is actually a non-factor.
Once she has a 2/4 flyer, things are really rough.
Right. The battlefield position of Dragskull Captain plus Supreme Phantom just gives you a really nice blocker, and probably some pretty good attackers if you look at the rest of your board.
Outside, though, Ryan, of these core Firewalkers, this matchup looks pretty good for Rudy's deck.
Yes. And actually, we kind of glossed over these hateful cards. I don't mind Rest in Peace in this matchup. It's actually really powerful.
What I just saw, yeah.
About it, yeah. Bedlam Reveler gets pretty well shut off. Rudy only gets the front half of Faithless Looting, and he's playing a deck that really needs access to flashing it back. It also just stops the ability to rebuy the Phoenixes.
So here, Season 2 is coming to an end. If you haven't had a chance to get one of our Aaron Barrich tokens, make sure you are able to find one. This was, of course, Aaron was our Season 1 Invitational winner at SCGCHAR in June. And as a result, got his Ardent token. He selected the 1/1 Soldier token. Those are being given away at all of our events here in Season 2 with an open or classic entry. We still have a couple more events. We have Las Vegas coming up next month, and we have SCGCon Winter in December. You can head out to those, and if those are far away, these are shipping with orders from StarCityGames.com. So plenty of ways to get some tokens until we crown another invitational winner.
Yeah, we are coming up on SCGCon Winter. Very excited for that event.
Yeah. Anytime we get to cover a cube draft is a good weekend for me.
Well, I mean, I'll find out. It's a first. I assume it'll be a pretty good
be
time.
Great. It's got to be great.
I love cube. If that's a bad time, then I don't really understand my own desires and value structure. I'm valuing something incorrectly if that doesn't go well. Big fan of cube draft.
Both players going to 6 here for game number 3. So when Burn mulligans to 6, it's a disaster. But I feel like Runaway Red, I could see it. I think it could be fine on 6 cards.
Yeah, the right 6 cards.
Yeah. Let's talk about this cube draft at SCGCon Winter here. It is the StarCityGames.com 10K cube draft. This is a vintage cube, meaning we have power. Now, you don't get to keep what you draft, but 8 players will qualify over the course of SCGCon Winter to play in the draft, and they are still competing for some pretty big prizes, $10,000 in cash prizes. So if all weekend you want to play some of the events and try to qualify for this, and if you're here at home or found us in the booth, this part I'm excited about, we have live coverage of the entire cube draft.
Yeah, really fun to watch. If you're able to make it to Roanoke, I would check out what the qualifying events are. I would love to be able to play this event. It's going to be a great time. When the Magic Online Vintage Holiday Cube rolls around, which, for the record, Justin Parnell designed this cube. Great cube designer. I would rather be playing Parnell's cube. But even that Magic Online cube, when that's on Magic Online, I don't leave the house.
Yeah.
I play it 3 times a day.
Rudy on Faithless Looting to start game number 3 here. Also, the Magic Online Vintage Cube is a 720 cube, right?
I think it's 540.
540?
But yeah, it's too big.
This is it. Well, no, but this is a 360 cube with all the power.
All the power will be in play.
Which means it's going to be crazier, I would think, right? So just percentage-wise, like...
You are more rewarded for knowing the cube environment in a 360 environment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like I think we'll see a lot of some busted stuff happening in cube decks.
Oh yeah, your deck will come together unless you screw up the draft in a 360 card cube.
I'm capable of doing that.
Oh, I've punted a draft or 2. I'm not saying that I'm not going to screw it up, but if you draft correctly in a 360 card cube, you should have a good deck.
So Rudy's turn on Faithless Looting. Turn 2 is met with nothing. Shelley makes Mausoleum Wanderer. And again, Core Firewalker, but this time it's turn 2.
That is much scarier, and you saw how good the one was that came late in game 2.
How do you feel about playing Desperate Ritual when your opponent's playing Core Firewalker?
Badly. I feel badly.
There we go. Ooh, I'll get a mana. You gain a life. Well, it looks like one of the sideboard Chandra Torch of Defiance is what's going to happen. So she'll gain 1. And it's going to look like it's going to be gaining another here with Chandra.
Chandra doesn't really have good modes here. You get -3 on the Wanderer. I assume you just +2 for some effect.
Anger of the Gods. She'll take 2. I mean, the problem is, you're playing the deck with 18 mountains, and this guy has protection from red.
Right. And also this situation where Rudy cast 2 red spells plus just Chandra, so that's just a wash on life totals. That was what his turn did.
And all it would take here from Shelley is something like Land Lord, and it's an attack for 5, and that's exactly what she has. It's Drogskull Captain. This is 5. She can just attack down Chandra.
Yep. Trigger Anthem. That's a 3/3 Wanderer. Or you might not even care about Chandra. I think because you have the Captain, you probably should.
So she sends 2 at the Chandra, and then the Wanderer, the 3 up at Rudy.
I would have liked to have seen just a full attack down on the Chandra.
Yeah, -3 to kill the Drogskull Captain feels like I'd rather that not happen.
It would cost Rudy the Chandra, but I think that the Captain's just worth more than the Chandra.
Well, here's what happens. Rudy casts Bedlam Reveler. Looks like he discarded one of his sideboard Blood Moons. And rather than taking care of the Captain, he pluses Chandra here. It's for mana.
In addition, but runs into a counterspell.
Yeah, Mausoleum Wanderer will protect the Drogskull Captain. Back over to Shelly Howell we go.
Yeah, that Wanderer was just on the table. Rudy got a little greedy there. Didn't want to give up the Chandra, that much makes sense, but just walked into that trick.
Selfless Spirit going to be cast. And now we see Drogskull Captain. That's a 2, both just attacking as a 2, puts Chandra down to 2. Now, Shelly's playing this pretty conservatively here. She cracks a fetch land. Because you have Core Firewalker against a red deck, is that how you've... I see what's going... That makes sense to me.
Yeah, so you have this free blocker here. I would be inclined to get the Chandra off the table.
Yeah, I guess if she turned Firewalker sideways, the Chandra would be gone.
On this turn, the Chandra won't have access to the -3. It's down to 2 loyalties, so the attack at least accomplished that much. But yeah, clearing it entirely does seem better by my estimation.
I do like this main phase fetch land crack from Shelly. It really suggests a card like Rattle Chains, and if that's what you have in hand, doing that main phase is a very heads-up play.
Yeah, making sure that you have the mana available in case you just have nothing happen and you want to do it end step.
A Braid. Shelly gains a life. Does she have the Rattle Chains? Well played here. She does. Now, Rudy has a second Braid, which she'll gain a life off of.
Selfless Spirit could save here still.
Yeah. And looks like she'll bid in the Drogskull Captain instead of the Selfless Spirit.
I suppose maintaining the Spirit for a future, say, Spell Queller could be a big deal.
Some confusion here. I think there's going to be a judge call to determine exactly where we were. She did put the creature in the graveyard, so the judge may rule it has to stay there. It really depends on what was said. So it looks like the table judge here is just going to discuss with the players and as far as where we were. And we'll let you know exactly what the ruling is on here. I think, yeah. We'll go ahead and come back to booth as they are figuring that one out. So I guess I think what it looks like is that, depending on what was said, Shelly wants to sacrifice the Selfless Spirit. Did see a creature hit the graveyard, so she may not get that ruling. We'll see.
I mean, if that's judge call,
we'll figure. They'll figure it out. It's good.
A lot of fast talking happening there.
Yeah.
The game has stopped.
Either way, the Core Firewalker is still around, and that feels like the main story of this game.
Right. That's a huge deal, and that's going to be true for traditional burn. It's not like Rudy sidestepped into a deck that's suddenly bad against Firewalker. I think it's worse against Firewalker. Some of the draws, there's an element that could be better. Kind of the thing about the mono-red version of the Arclight Phoenix deck that I don't like is you see way fewer of your cards than when you're playing Serum Vision's Thought Scour. So it's way easier for the Is It, or even maybe splash a third color version of the deck to actually find more Phoenixes. He does some cool things, though.
All right, let's head back down to our table here. All right, so it looks like our resolution is that the Drogskull Captain is going to be gone here. Both the Braids are in the graveyard. And Rudy now passes. Another Selfless Spirit here from Shelly. Attack for 4. Is she going to hit down the Chandra, or does she just not care? It looks like it's all upstairs. Rudy to 12.
Yeah, the only creature she controls she cares about is Core Firewalker. Chandra doesn't do anything about that. It does have the ability to kind of get Rudy extra cards by +1 to exile the top card. So it's worth that much, but I think Shelly's pretty firmly winning the damage race.
Yeah, I mean, he'll get a Bedlam Reveler here. I hate leaving Planeswalkers on the table for my opponent, so I kind of want to get rid of it. At the same time, if she just believes that Rudy has no relevant cards in his deck to draw, pushing damage makes sense.
Right. Like, I can beat this deck. You're playing a bunch of standard cards or whatever.
I have 3 flyers and a Core Firewalker. What could you possibly do that I care about?
And these 3 flyers are just lethal in 2. The Core Firewalker is unblockable. You can toss that one in the mix as well.
Rudy did discard an Arclight Phoenix off that second Bedlam Reveler, so he is representing a lot of damage here. Now Shelley will swing 6 in the air. Rudy's going to maybe drop to 6. Looks like attempt to burst lightning a Selfless Spirit, and no. Here's Rattle Chains.
That is a good Rattle Chains.
Here's another Lightning Bolt at a something. At a Selfless Spirit. The other Selfless Spirit, sure. And that one's fine. Rudy still takes 4, goes to 8.
Now Rudy's in a position where he needs to... Well, I suppose he can Chandra -3 here, and that would make it so that the attack's no longer lethal.
He has Anger of the Gods in hand, so it looks like he's trying to get rid of these Selfless Spirits so that he can sweep the board.
Yeah, he really wanted to get both of them there.
Faithless Looting.
He'd still kind of be in trouble with the core Firewalker. I suppose he wouldn't be expressly losing because he does have the 2 Bedlam Revelers.
Discards the 2 cards he drew, which was another Looting and a Runaway Steamkin. Still does not have a way. I guess over 2 turns he can Chandra, kill Selfless Spirit. Then the next turn he can Anger the Gods. He's just going to cast Anger. But Shelley's going to flash in Mausoleum Wanderer and counter it for the Force Spike. Ooh.
Yikes. And now she just has lethal attackers.
Well, let's pause. Rudy's Chandra can remove one of these Rattle Chains.
Right.
A swing. One of the Bedlam Rebels will be blocked. Shelley will go to 16.
Still looks real bad for Rudy.
Yeah, not great. And if this is a Supreme Phantom where we have the damage, no, it's not. But it's a second core Firewalker.
There's a lot of ways to cold this deck.
Here's a swing for 4. We're ignoring the Chandra. Rudy's going to go to 4.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to ignore the Chandra before, you certainly ignore the Chandra now.
Third Bedlam Reveler from Rudy. And, you know, this Runaway Red deck has looked really impressive, but it turns out the All Mountains deck still has trouble with multiple core Firewalkers.
Yeah, funny how that
works.
Go figure. You know what card might have been nice here? It's Collective Brutality.
Yeah.
I'm just saying somebody might have put a Grixis Arclight Phoenix deck in the what we would play column. Anyway.
And there's the hand, yeah. Even just like there is a deck, right? Thing in the Ice. That'd be nice here.
Yeah, Thing in the Ice would have been great. Runaway Red, it's a little rough around the edges. Rudy's playing a deck that does some cool things.